Nawaz became, I won't say a victim of, but Nawaz fell to the Panama Papers leaks. I think the Tabdeeli slogan legitimately did catch people's imagination. The PTI has been successful even when you look at it in a global way. For the overseas Pakistanis, it's very simple. They wanted someone that they could be proud of. Imran was a great sell for these people. The Karachi thing was purely an MQM loss. From 2018 till mid-2019, at least, the opposition was gone. There was no one there. I think the whole Project Imran completely took over. With Nawaz Sharif, or even with the PPP, you didn't need to block the internet. Because see, their strength was not on the internet. But with Imran and the PTI, you need to block the internet because they're all there. The 2018 elections were also extremely contentious.
The elections in 2018 and the elections that are happening right now, what are some of the differences?
I think we pretty much know who's going to win.
As the 2024 elections are just a few days away, I've been wondering what happened in the last few elections in Pakistan. Today we have with us journalist Zebunnisa Burki, and I'm Hawa Fazil. I'm a reporter at Dawn.com. Today with her, we'll be talking about the 2018 elections in Pakistan. So thank you, Zebunnisa Burki, for coming to our show. So I was wondering, let's start with the basics, So why was Nawaz Sharif's, government dismissed prematurely? What happened?
So Nawaz became, I won't say a victim of, but Nawaz fell to the Panama Papers leaks. Ostensibly, the case against him was framed because his and his family's names came in the Panama Papers leaks regarding some property that they say he had bought on behalf of his children who were minors at that time. But technically, he was dismissed from office for not having declared that he was an employee of his son's firm that was based in the UAE, which is why it's called the Iqama case. The Iqama is a business visa that you get to be able to live validly in the UAE. Nawaz said that he had not received a salary from his son, but that he did sort of put his name there because he needed an Iqama. The court said that it didn't matter whether he had received a salary or not. And then in a very short, legal explanation, the Supreme Court reinterpreted Article 62(1)(f) that says that a parliamentarian has to be Sadiq and Amin to stay a parliamentarian. And they kicked him out of office, and they also banned him for life from ever contesting or ever being a parliamentarian.
Interesting. So, there were a lot of narratives around the 2018 elections. This was happening, that was happening. There were huge rallies. But what were the main narratives that, shaped the 2018 elections?
I think the word for 2018 elections, while it was going on and just a little before that, was Tabdeeli. Right? I think that pretty much the PTI took the Tabdeeli change slogan and ran with it. I think cynics, including a lot of us journalists, had in the beginning thought that it won't really work, but it did. I think the Tabdeeli slogan legitimately did catch people's imaginations. So the narrative was change from what we have right now. And then the narrative went on to say that what we have right now is corruption and corrupt leaders. And Imran is an anti-status quo politician who will change things for the better. That was the basic narrative going forward. On the other side, there was no narrative in 2018 because I think they were just reeling from the shocks of what was happening to them, right? The narrative was firmly in the hands of the PTI. In my opinion.
Okay, continuing the conversation with Nawaz Sharif being dismissed, what were the narratives that shaped the 2018 election?
So I think the main narrative was Tabdeeli, change. The PTI banked solely on this narrative. It had been banking on this narrative for a while before the elections, of course, starting from way back from like 2014 during the Dharna days. So I think the slogan change and tabdili pretty much was the narrative going forward. And at the back of it all, the context was that we want to change from corruption, and we want to change from the status quo of corruption, whose symbols were, according to the PTI, PMLN and PPP, because they were targeting both parties at that time. And I think it was a very successful narrative. And obviously on the other side, there was no narrative, also because those parties were not really used to giving narratives, in response to a stronger, newer narrative. So you have PPP with your Roti Kapda Makan. It's been going on since Bhutto's time, right? And you have Nawaz and Shehbaz talking about motorways. And then suddenly comes Imran with his whole thing that, everything is horrible. I'm the answer to corruption. to the end of corruption. I will end corruption for you people. And you take that forward with the Panama cases and all that was going on. There was a heavy tilt as well towards the narrative of change, which is why there was a lot of success in that as well.
Most of his supporters, PTI supporters, were the youth, the overseas Pakistanis. This is a genre of people that have not been, tapped into before. How was he able to do it so well?
I think it's also, again, comes back to, Imran is also not your regular politician. You see, I think it's the optics of it all. And I think PTI is probably the biggest success story. I would actually venture as far to say that the PTI has been successful even when you look at it in a global way. They have managed to put forth a message, they have run with it, they have stuck to it, they are still sticking to it, right? Imran is in jail right now, but he's not really incarcerated in the grand scheme of things. He's still in people's imaginations. They can't get rid of him in that sense, politically speaking. So I think they tapped into the youth thing. A cynic would say that was part of the whole Project Imran situation. It might be, yes, but he's a good sell as well. Can you imagine Nawaz being trotted out and being asked to become the messiah for the youth? It doesn't work that way. Yeah. So I think he had the package. Yep. Yeah, he was a sportsman. He was kind of cooler in a way, but not too cool. And he had the religious reawakening going on at a time where your youth is struggling with identity issues. I think our place in Pakistan and in the world is so confusing for a lot of people, and they feel so slighted sometimes by what the world thinks of them. And then you have the strong man leader, who looks good and who white people also appreciate. And you're like, oh, look, the way he speaks so well. And when he goes, and all those, that whole idea, when he goes into the UN, look at how he talks, And have you ever seen Nawaz talk and Parchi? And all of those things combined made him a good sell. For the overseas Pakistanis, it's very simple. They wanted someone that they could be proud of. Yeah. They were not proud of the other people. Benazir was a different situation because they could still feel something, but I think there was a weight of the Bhutto legacy for her, unfairly so as well. But Imran was a great sell for these people. It's the optics, I think, that sold really well. And of course, the narrative building was great too.
It was great. And following his wings, there were a lot of parties that lost, which were really, really shocking at that time. Can you point some of those for us? Which party losses shocked you? And
I think for the most part, MQM losing Karachi. Yeah. But that would also be tied in to Project Dismantle Altaf Hussain. Okay. A lot of these things are interconnected as well. But I think it was a shock. I think Bilawal's, I think the PTI defeated PPP in Liari as well, I believe. I think Bilawal was defeated. You can check that later as well, but I think they did. That was a big shock. ANP only won 1 seat. ANP, which was the winning, the thing is that these were old parties, and again, the narrative won the day. I don't think PTI won as much as the narrative won, right? Yeah. Obviously, all of this, I would say, with a caveat that the 2018 elections were also extremely contentious. And when we say win and lose, we also have to keep in mind all that transpired before the elections. Yeah. So there was a lot of pre-poll and during poll and post-poll problems as well. So the PTI didn't just miraculously, it's not like they didn't have electables either. So they did have electables, right? Yeah. They got a large chunk of those as well. It wasn't like an unbelievable win. But yeah, I mean, MQM losing, ANP losing like that, they were obliterated almost.
So, we were very hopeful of Imran Khan, especially with his, 100-day plan in which he was like promising, I'll do this in 100 days, that in 100 days, which a lot of people my age thought that, it's possible. If he says we can do it. What do you think? Was it over-ambitious? Should we be blaming him for not doing it all? Or should we be blaming him for, being over-ambitious? Why? How would you say that?
I think that there was a journalist who had said that perhaps we don't realize that was he handed, or everyone in Pakistan, are they handed like a poison chalice already when you come into power? And sort of promises that you make are impossible already. Just look at the manifestos right now. Well, one of the manifestos, I think the PPP has come out with a manifesto of giving 300 Bijli units to people. You can't do it. It's not possible, but it sounds great, right? And so these are all electoral promises that you're making. Perhaps the difference was that people actually thought it would happen, right? And he was extremely convincing as well. Maybe he convinced himself as well. I remember watching him announce the 100-day plan, and he had said, look, in 100 days, to be fair, we can't do everything, but this is a direction. So when you're at the height of popularity, this is his words, Imran's words. He said, at the height of our popularity, we want to take the tough decisions which will set the course ahead. Obviously, that's very ambitious, too ambitious. So one of them was killing corruption, right? So what they did do probably in the first 100 days was, I think they had like cases against some of their political opponents. But that anyone in Pakistan will do when they come into power in any case. The rest of them will fall by the wayside because that's what happens when you win an election. And when you come up with plans that are grounded more in abstract ideology and not actual, one of the plans was that we won't take a begging bowl or something, we'll break free from the shackles of IMF and stuff, and that doesn't happen that easily, unfortunately, obviously. So yes, these were ambitious plans, for sure. Probably too ambitious.
Maybe, deflated his voters in the later stages because they were like, he didn't do it.
I don't know if they are deflated. I'm not sure about that. They might have been had he not been unceremoniously kicked out.
But do you think that 2018 elections were different in the way that a lot of voters came out? Like people like me were like, let's do this, we can make a change. And was it different than the other elections?
I think Pakistan has changed, right? Generally, we are younger. You people are younger people. And so Pakistan is now a young country. It's a country of the young, really. And there's always more enthusiasm, I hope, and I believe, when you have younger voters. And particularly when they feel that their guy might just win, right? Or like right now, for example, their guy is being persecuted, right? So I think that the demographic change has probably also led to a change in enthusiasm as well. A first-time voter is not as cynical, I'm hoping, right? A second time voter or third time, and then you go on, and you're like, well, this keeps happening, you know. The only downside, and to that, I think, is that, you know, for a younger voter, when they feel that their vote hasn't been acknowledged, they might just get very unenthused very quickly without realizing that this happens, and then you can make a change later on as well. You know, it's okay.
So there was this one more thing that happened which said that these elections are also violent in the way that others were. There was this Mustang massacre which was there. Can you tell us what happened? What was it? Because
so there was I think there were two blasts over there. There were two blasts, right? In Mustang, targeting this. So the former chief minister of Balochistan, Aslam Raisani, his brother died in them. His name was Siraj Raisani from the Balochistan Awami Party, right? And I think there were like 150 people died, and they were I think it happened very close to the election, right? 2018 was already being seen as having been 2013 as well, had that 2018 as well, that some parties were facing a lot more threats of extremist violence. Let's put it that way. ANP was one of them, PPP was one of them, right? Because there was this fear that extremist attacks would target them, right? The Mustang massacre blast was one of those. I mean, it was a huge one. It was massive, really, over there. But yeah, I think that was the last big, huge, violent event to have taken place before the elections actually went forward.
Okay, so there was also this, at the same time, Nawaz Sharif landed in Pakistan after, you know, running away on his Panama Papers. What happened when he landed in Pakistan?
He was arrested with his daughter. I think he was arrested, right? They had come in, and both the father and daughter had arrived. They also, it's not like they were shocked, because everyone pretty much knew they would be arrested, right? You can check exactly what time, when they were arrested, but they were arrested soon after. I don't remember Nawaz leading any election effort after he had joined in back in Pakistan, right? Sort of like right now he can, but at that time he was in jail with his daughter. His daughter was also in jail at that time.
So for PMNN, we know that, you know, the Panama Papers and everything. Why was PPP so unpopular with the people?
That is a question for the ages. Look, the PPP, even in 2018, was eyeing Sindh. It got Sindh, right? It had dwindled, its support had dwindled in Punjab, largely, in any case. So it got Sindh. I think the result was okay as far as that goes. If we're looking at Karachi specifically, Karachi is not PPP's in any case. No matter how many times they'll repeat it, it doesn't work that way. The Karachi thing was purely an MQM loss. Absolutely. We also have to remember that we also saw the rise of the TLP in the 2018 elections, and alarmingly, even though they didn't get those many seats, I think they got 2 seats from Sindh, I think, but they also rose as the 3rd largest party polled. So they might not have gotten the seats, but they got a lot more. They really rose as far as their strength went, popularity wise, right? So the rise of the TLP, I think, was one of the well, it wasn't ignored, but one of those things that happened in 2018 and a little before that, that will have had long-term consequences for us, regardless of whoever constructed the TLP.
So if you, let's say, you had to give a headline to the summary of these elections, what would you give it? What would you term it in like a few words?
In a few words, The 2000.
It has to be a headline.
It has to be a headline. Well, I guess, Project Imran takes over, completely. That's what I would have given had I had the chance. But I think that also I think one of the things is that there is no opposition in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And I think Pakistan from 2018 till mid 2019 at least, the opposition was gone. There was no one there. It's not like they were doing anything or saying much. There were a lot of court cases against them. I think the whole Project Imran just completely took over post 2018. I would say a little before that as well, but that would be.
So if you had to go back to the elections in 2018 and the elections that are happening right now, what are some of the similarities that you can pick out, and what are some of the differences that are happening in these elections and in the 2018 elections?
I think we pretty much know who's going to win. I think so. Although in 2018 it was a lot more subtle. Everything that's going on right now, I would say a version of it has happened previously. I know people don't like it when you say it, but history is always a good reminder of things. And it has absolutely nothing to do with condoning what's going on. It's just a reminder that things have happened before. But I think things were more subtle at that time. I also think that the voices weren't as loud back then, voices of resistance, which are far louder at the moment. And kudos to social media for that. At that time, we didn't see that. Also, a lot of the media was under completely crippling censorship in those days and the days that followed 2018. So, we didn't really get to report a lot of the stuff that was going on. But I think today things are admittedly extremely bad as far as persecution goes against a particular party. But the difference is that you can actually see it happen. And you also hear a lot more people talk about it. For example, and that's where Imran's success is. The overseas Pakistani is a huge success story, because you have overseas Pakistanis who, are not bound by our censorship rules and regulations, and they can say whatever they want to, sitting away from Pakistan. So, I think that's one of the major factors behind this louder resistance right now.
Louder resistance. And people would disagree that, it is not loud enough, we are still being conceived.
It's understandable when you, the thing is that I think censorship tactics change with the person that you're censoring as well. For example, imagine with Nawaz Sharif or even with the PPP, you didn't need to block the internet. Because see, their strength was not on the internet. But with Imran and the PTI, you need to block the internet because they're all there. And that's where the activism is going on, right? So those guys, that was a different way of manufacturing consent. This is a different way of manufacturing whatever selection they want to do right now.
And they are unable to manage it.
And they're not very good at it right now.
I mean, we have been seeing these internet blocks are ridiculous to the point, because the world right now cannot function without the internet. TV you can block out, everybody can do their jobs. Internet you can't.
Also, I think, and I'm glad you brought up the TV thing. So we saw a lot of media censorship. So we've all lived through it, right? Papers are blocked, TV channels are taken off air. And that happens, it has happened consistently. If you ask people about 2013 elections or elections before that also, censorship is part and parcel of what happens. But the thing with the internet, it is of course it affects everyone, right? And B, you have VPNs now.
Yeah.
So see, I immediately will turn on the VPN and say, well, what's going on with Twitter, right? And that's it. It's done.
It's done.
Your censorship has gone. I've taken it away. So the power is still with the user. Not with every user perhaps, yes, but it's still with the user. So it's self-defeating and it's very silly. And it's so obvious and lazy.
Lazy, like really
Yeah, it's
lazy.
very lazy.
Because they're using the law now to
Yeah.
use the censorship.
Yeah.
Like the change tactic is using
Yeah.
the law in
So-
every possible way.
So it's a lazy way of trying to dismantle a project that you were part of building. So then deal with it now. You built it.
They're there with it for the 2024 elections. Maybe for the next ones they won't be able to.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
Because it's making him powerful than he was
might
before.
just be sitting here having this chat again.
Hopefully. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So this was Zebunnisa Burki, the journalist with whom we discussed the 2018 elections. We have done 5 more elections, so stay tuned for them. They will be available on DawnNews English, and if you want to read the piece, it's available on dawn.com. Thank you so much.